Hello guys, everyone. Welcome to our very special webinar. My name is Lisa. I'm a lead digital marketer at Onde, a white label ride-hailing platform. And today we're having a live interview with Amit, the founder of Stroll, a very special, very successful ride-hailing business on Guam. And for those who don't know, Guam is a US island territory in Micronesia in the Western Pacific. So the company that Amit founded, Stroll, has been recently acquired by Triple J Enterprises. And at this company, Amit was responsible for hands-on management of daily company operations, digital marketing and online branding, as well as managing day-to-day operations in all the different divisions. So hello, Amit. It's so great to see you with us today. Thank you so much for agreeing for this interview.
Thank you for the rollout, Liza. I like that actually. Hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and I'm glad to provide whatever insight, experience that I can share.
Yeah. So Amit, we have prepared a lot of questions to you
Sure.
today, and we will cover all the different topics: your entrepreneurial experience,
hmm
success behind your company, even some technical questions.
Okay.
And to the audience, I just want to say that this whole interview is being recorded, and you will get the link to this interview. It will be on YouTube. So no worries if you cannot stay till the very end, you will be able to watch it later. But yeah, I guess we can start because really there are so many questions. I just hope that we will make it on time. But Amit, let's start with your introduction and the introduction of your company, Stroll. Could you please tell us a bit more about your background, your experience, and about the company you founded?
Sure. So I would say I'm a tech entrepreneur with experience in both the music industry, but as well as now it's been 8 years in the mobility space. I came up with the idea of Stroll by, I was actually an audio engineer in LA in the mid 2010s. And so what happened is I took Uber, thought it was a crazy experience as a customer. And from there, I was like, you know what, I wonder how it is for drivers. And every time I took an Uber, I would ask drivers like, hey, how's your experience? And I would kind of get like mixed sort of reviews. So I told myself, really the only way for me to truly find out is to become a driver. So I went through the whole process, drove for Uber for a couple of weeks. I thought it was actually a brilliant idea. And then I thought about where I'm from, Guam. I was born and raised there, but I have roots in Thailand, so I would always go back and forth. And so when I thought of the idea of, wow, this could actually really work in Guam because we have a lot of mobility issues. The bus systems are not the best, and taxis have, you could say, monopolized the market and created sort of fees that doesn't really work for everybody and doesn't make sense. And so one thing led to another, and then I started Stroll. And people ask me, oh, why the name Stroll? Well, stroll is actually a word that's used in the everyday sort of conversation in Guam. I wouldn't say it's a slang, but it's just a word of choice. And I liked it because it could be used as both a noun and a verb. And yeah, so I just went with that name, and I think it fit quite well.
Oh, that's nice. But I'm just really curious because you mentioned that you decided to like try this experience as a driver, but like why you were excited to try this? Why you were like kind of fascinated by this idea that Uber presented?
Well, I was fascinated by the idea because seeing that, the everyday person could become a driver and earn revenue, earn income, and not necessarily have a second job, I think that was very intriguing to me. And what I thought about was in Guam is, a lot of people have vehicles. So actually for quite a small island, there is quite a number of vehicles. When everybody comes to Guam, that's actually what they say. They're like, wow, I didn't realize how many cars there are in this island. And so I thought to myself, okay, this would be perfect for, teachers, moms, students, or anybody really who wants to make extra income. And in this way too, Guam's biggest industry is tourism, and as well as there's a huge military presence. So with that in mind, I said, these demographics are going to be looking for rides, and I also think with the local market, they just never had this option because taxis were never really an option for the local market. It was more of like a last resort that, that nobody wanted to pick you up and you're absolutely stranded. Then people would go with a taxi. So I said, okay, this could be perfect because we can lower, driving under the influence numbers. And that's something that we actually did. We have the proven data to show that Stroll did help with that to a degree. And it was, yeah, that was what really intrigued me. And so me taking it as a driver, I got to see it for myself. And because I got to see it for myself, I got to think to myself, oh, I like these sort of features as a driver, but maybe these sort of things we could also tweak and make better. So that's really why I started. And to be quite honest, it was not from the beginning of, hey, I want to start a ride hailing company and I need to do this, and this. It was more of, okay, let me see how this is. Okay, let me see how that is. And I think because I took it one step at a time, it actually made more sense as opposed to, I already know what I want to do. I don't need to listen. I already know what the market wants. I don't need to listen to the market. And I think that is actually a mistake entrepreneurs make, and I've made that mistake in the past. You have to understand the market you're in. There could be even some commonalities to a different market, but especially Guam is a very, very unique market, I would say, because you have this blend of, I would say, the West and the East. So you do have, of course, the U.S. influence and culture, but you also have a very Asian influence, and of course the local island culture as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And I see the common grain points. I completely agree with that. So basically, you knew the market well and you knew the pain points and you saw the opportunities. But how did the start of your company look like? How was it at the very beginning when
How
you?
is the start? Well, I think the first step when you're building a technology company is trying to figure out where you're going to get the technology, right? And that's what people usually ask me, like, hey, how do you know how to make an app and all that? And I said, well, I attended Google University, YouTube University, and I started just putting dots together, reading some books, reaching out to my network of contacts, and one of my really good friends, I would say my best friend, he recommended, he said, hey, your family's from Thailand, you go to Thailand often, why don't you source a developer from there? So, one thing led to another. Yeah, and I'm in New York at the moment, so you're gonna hear these New York sounds from here to there. But yeah, that's what I did, and then from there, I understood how to build out user experience, UX, user interface, and actually how to build an app, right? And from there, started sourcing drivers locally in Guam, how to do that, coming up with the sort of the commission rate for drivers. So it was one step at a time. So we launched July 2nd, 2016, and I actually started
I am.
building, yes, I started building the app in, I think around October to November 2015. So it took about like 6 to 8 months to actually build out the app, right? And then yeah, that's just how it started, and then one thing led to another, and then I had to, actually come up with a law for Guam for this sort of company because there was no industry, and wanted to really make sure that we were not categorized as a taxi because our thinking was not only was it, hey, we don't really fall in that realm, but we didn't want to confuse the marketplace as, oh, this is a taxi company that is just utilizing technology. No, we wanted people to be able to distinguish between the two.
Yeah, yeah, I see. And we will get back to all the different technology points a bit later, but you mentioned that you had to come up with the law. Like, was it difficult for you
Um,
to
it
work with the
was an
government?
experience. I will say that. I mean, I think in this sort of realm, the word difficult I think can stray away a lot of people, because if you really think about it, and I don't want to get too philosophical, but it's really a mental construct, right? So when something is difficult or perceived difficult, I like to break it down into steps, into smaller steps, right? And in this way, instead of looking something and being so overwhelmed, I can say, okay, I'm focused on this step one, then step two, step three, step four, and then eventually in that sequence, I'm going to end up at the finish line. So that was my mentality. And so coming up with the law, it was very interesting because I had to understand how it works, right? Who actually creates the
Yeah.
law. So in Guam, it's like the U.S. system. So the senators actually come up with the law, the written law. They vote on it whether to pass that written definition, and then of course the governor in the island can decide whether to not or to veto it, or to have it like not sign it and it just elapses into law, or that she or he will sign it. Luckily, everything went well, and it actually took about a year to 2 years to create this law. That's what people don't understand is I started in
Yeah.
2016, and the law got passed in 2018. So it was quite a journey, but I think it was great because not only for Stroll, but just actually the ride-hailing industry in Guam, where it actually gave a reference point and a guideline to where if anybody wanted to enter this space, they could understand what they need to do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And as you are talking about other companies as well, and that's the question that we also have. And I see the question in the chat about the difference between Stroll and Good to Go rides. But like, of course, when you started, there were, as you said, like kind of no competition, and the situation was pretty difficult in terms of transportation. But later, did you get some competitors, and what did set Stroll apart from these competitors?
Sure. So I would say, imitation is the best form of flattery. And I think with these sort of competitors, I think, you know, um, it's quite funny because I actually knew these people, right? And of course, it's a free market. Anybody can decide what they want to do. But I think I was pretty confident in the sense of this is not an easy space. It's really not. And I say that because, being in it, it's taken 8 years to get to the point we're at now, right? And of course, the early years is quite difficult. I think anybody's entrepreneurial journey, you have to be uh, prepared to eat dirt. I'll just put it that way. Eat dirt for at least the first 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4 years. And so when I saw these competitors, I looked at it as wow, well, first, the initial reaction everybody has is, oh, what? Why is there anybody want to go against me? But then I thought about it and said, you know what? This actually gives us an opportunity to better our system. And I think because we've actually had a strong brand name in the market for a while, I actually think that these customers we have, they could actually sort of see that there were quote unquote copycats out there, right?
Yeah.
And to everybody owns, like, anybody can do what they want to do. It's a free market. But of course, I think what separated us is we understood how the market is, we understood how drivers are. And I think in this sort of business, what people have to understand is I always say we have two customers. Of course, we have our customers who are taking rides, making bookings, but we look at the drivers as a customer base as well. And I think that's what separates us is that understanding of both these groups. And because if you're too one-sided to either group and you don't have that seesaw or you try to find that equilibrium, you're going to run into issues.
Yeah, actually, as you're talking about drivers as well, and we have like this question quite often from our potential partners: who is more important, drivers or customers? Like, who do you pay more attention to, especially when you start?
Um, that's a great question. I wouldn't say there's necessarily a priority to one or the other, but I would say, especially in the beginning, it's pretty difficult to have a transportation business without drivers, right? And you can have all the customers in the world, but if you cannot supply that demand, it doesn't mean anything. But also on the other side of that, if you're so focused on drivers, you know, and your customers don't feel valued, then you're also going to run to a plethora of issues. And so you have to find this equilibrium of supply and demand. And I think in the beginning, maybe the focus will be on drivers, but you have to. It's really hard for me to say that. Oh, in the beginning it's just drivers, and then you go to customers. It's really both, and you have to do both simultaneously to understand both segments. But I would say yes, in the beginning, you have to have a strategy of how to acquire drivers, especially if you're doing the business model that we're doing, where drivers are not employees, they're contractors. So you really have to understand the difference between contractors and employees. You have to understand what is the relationship with the company and the contractor. As opposed to, if drivers are employees, it's a bit different situation where you can just hire as many drivers and you can tell them, you have to go here at this certain time. And so I actually didn't want to go that route where maybe it actually could have been better for the company, because it actually defeats the purpose of why I actually got into this space. And the main reason was, of course, getting people from point A to point B and making bookings. But my main objective and goal was to provide another revenue stream for people on the island.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for answering this question, and I'm getting back to our other questions. And so at the beginning, when you mentioned about specifics of Guam as an island, a lot of different cars and transport, do you think that the success of your taxi service is related to the specific geographical location and the people who live there?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's very specific and curated, because we do have the ability, and it is in the cards to expand in the region. I can't talk about it as of yet because it's still brewing. Might be too early to, but that is in the cards. I think what I had to do and what we had to do as a company was understand, and I think where I became good at over time was going to different markets, like the market I'm in now, like a New York or an LA or a Bangkok in Thailand, and understanding what works in those markets and how to bring it to the Guam market, but also understanding that, okay, something that works in Bangkok does not necessarily mean it works in Guam. So you have to be able to know how to pick and choose what works. And so what I like to do is something called contrast traveling, where I will actually go to a very developed place, so where I'm at like now, which is like a New York, and then I'll actually be heading to Jamaica later today. And so I'll go to a developing place right after and get a sense of that feel, and be able to understand the Guam market better, because there are aspects of a developed place, a developed nation, and there are also aspects of a developing nation. So you have to understand where, in what areas does it kind of check off the developed box, and where does it check off the developing box.
Yeah, that's a great point actually. So you just gather all these different experiences that you can later kind of adjust and adapt to your local market. And also to the point of the location of your company, there is a question from Charlie in the chat. Has your company faced any legal obstacles regarding safety and insurance similar to what USA transportation companies must face? Or was it easier for you?
Knock on wood, we never really had any issues of that sort, because we were very focused on our driver SOPs on safety. And that was the number one thing we wanted to ensure customers, because getting somewhere from point A to point B conveniently means nothing if safety is not at the front issue. So that was something we really stressed upon. And because what I liked is because Guam is a market that's not like really huge, we were actually very able to manage drivers, where we don't look at a driver as like a number in our system, where and I get it, like companies like Uber, Lyft, and Grab, right? They're very huge. So for them to really understand every individual driver, I think it actually would be an operations nightmare. And so, because we don't have that, uh, we actually have like a very close knit group, right? And that's also um, been contributed to our great admin staff, right? We have two ladies who do a great job. And I think that's what actually makes the drivers feel more comfortable is that they're not a number in the system where it's, hey, you have an issue, we will get back to you as soon as we can. And, as soon as we can could be 2 days or 3 days. I, I did not want to do that. And because you could say the driver pool in Guam is not as large as other places, we were able to do that effectively.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, that's such a pleasure to hear from someone like you who really care about people in your company. It's just amazing.
Well, I would say is, when you build a company, people is probably um, the, you know, social capital, people capital is so important because without that, yeah, for me personally, I wouldn't want to walk into an office where the mood is really low, people don't want to be there, and there's just no ROI in that for me or anybody. So I wanted to create an environment where people want to be there, people want to step up to when the challenges come, and I think that's actually extremely important because when a challenge comes and you already don't want to be there, it's going to be very hard to overcome that hurdle. So, thankfully, I want to, based on my experience and seeing my parents be entrepreneurs and how they manage others, and my family in Thailand, and just other people I've been around, I want to say I've been blessed to see great management styles, and I'm a strong believer in not micromanaging. So, what I like to see is, especially when someone joins our team, to see where they were in the beginning to where they are now and see that progression, that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for such words and the answers. So I guess you were mentioning that you were able to focus on business with on this platform, right?
Yes. Yes. So I was able to focus on the business side of things. And I think that's what actually made us stronger as a company because as a tech company, right, I think, yes, the technology part is extremely important, but you're still running a business, right? And what I mean by that is you have to focus on your customers, you have to focus on your vendors, you have to focus on all these sorts of things. So if you're only focused on the technology side of things and not on the business side, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a huge problem because at the end of the day, I like to compare like an app, for example, is it's a storefront, right? So it's like if you have a retail storefront, like yeah, you have the retail storefront, but if the customer service is horrible, you don't have the storefront is not clean. It doesn't really matter at that point, right? So I like to make that comparison.
Yeah, yeah, and you, I guess, have no noticed any improvements in efficiency or like customer satisfaction since you integrated with Onde, am I right?
Oh, correct. For 1,000,000%.
Yeah. And are there any specific business improvements you've had as a result of our platform? I don't know, growth in customer base,
Oh,
increased number
yes.
of things.
Definitely scaling in both things, right? So scaling in customers, scaling in drivers, also scaling in our, you could say, like partnerships with different businesses. So what I liked about it is it made us more confident to make these moves in the market. Whereas maybe when we weren't using Ondi, I had to be like, okay, you know what? I really want to make this move. But I don't know if our technology is all the way there yet, and I don't want to put ourselves in a position where we commit to something and then we can't follow through. That would not be right. So because we're
Yeah.
with Ondi now, like I don't have that worry.
Oh yeah, that's really great. So it really helped your business, and thank you so much for these amazing answers. I'm slowly moving towards some other business questions and specifically about some of your kind of future plans. But before that, and we have a question here as well, but
Sure.
Based on your experience, what advice would you give to other taxi businesses looking for a technological solution?
Besides just partnering with Onde, uh, I would say if when you're looking for this solution, you have to keep everything into account, right? So meaning, if you're just saying, "Oh, this technology is great," but the customer support side of things is not, don't just put that to the side and disregard it. And then also the other side of it, right? If their support system is great, but their technology is not where you think it should be, I think that's also important. So you have to have a combination of both, right? Understand that it is a tech business, but also realize that the second word in tech business is business. So at the end of the day, even though somebody can provide you with outstanding technology, you still have to see, is it a viable business? Is the market ready? All these sorts of things. So it's a combination of things, right? It's very hard for me to say just look at this or and look at this and that's it. Every individual is going to go through different things, right? Like, for example, with us, when we came across Ondi, we weren't starting the business. We already had the business. We already had a customer base. We already had a driver base. So I think it was much different. Whereas if we had, started from, the beginning, right, or from scratch, of course, it would have been a little different story. And I'm not saying better or worse, it just would have been different.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Thank you. Thank you, Amit. And finally, like my favorite questions. Let's talk about your future business plans. Can you
Sure.
share it with us?
So uh, I think it might be a little too early, but I am going to still be involved in the mobility space. We'll just call it that. And I'm looking to do something similar, but I think with more enhancements. And I want to do something where we can really fully utilize the Onde platform. And I think now, because I've been with Onde since 2021, wow, it's been wow, for almost 4 years coming up. Um, I think I can use my experience with the platform and, of course, my experience in the space and my know how and expand it internationally. And I think that there actually, with this sort of space, there is some untapped, whether it's market segments or features that I think people are not utilizing. And I want to expand, not only just in your ride hailing sort of space or dealing with people, but I think also in the logistics sides of things. I'm very interested in that as well. And of course, I'm also involved in the music industry, right? So I've actually am a consultant in that realm. Um, yeah, I just like making businesses, connecting with people. So with me, what I'm maybe telling you now, this could probably change maybe in a day or two, where I could be doing more things. But yeah, I'm still focused in the transportation tech space. Have some things coming, and that might be one of the reasons I'm heading to Jamaica later today. But who knows? But
Yeah.
but yeah, there will be more coming from me in this space, and I'm looking forward to connecting with more people in this space, whether that's people who are in the investment capital side, whether that's people, on the ground in different regions. And so with me, when it comes to me, I think the best way to sum it up is, if I can travel, do business, you know, gain more relationships, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's exciting, and it's really good to hear that you're staying in the space of mobility. That's really exciting. But what about Stroll? Has anything changed after the acquisition of the company?
Yes. So, of course, I stepped down as CEO of the company. Um, and I think what's really great is it reignited like a new spark in drivers and in customers, because they see that, I think, with the acquisition of, wow, this company is actually growing. And now that it's aligned with a great enterprise in Triple J, they can take what we're doing and really accelerate and enhance it to where I think it'll benefit drivers and customers. So, because Triple J is already involved in the automotive sector, I think it's quite easy that they can give drivers a lot of benefits and incentives. And I think with customers, they can do the same thing as well. And I was actually very glad, and especially in the beginning, open to this acquisition because I saw where Stroll could be in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. And not saying that we could have done that on our own. I think we actually could have. But when I made this decision, it wasn't a personal decision as, oh, what would I want to do? It was what was the best, what's the best for the company? And I think it was actually the best thing. And I also knew too that, I would still be involved in the space, that I would just be doing different things and in different locations. So I think it's actually been a win-win for everybody involved. And it's only been actually a month, right? Actually, today would be exactly a month, which is kind of crazy. So I think there's still more to come. What I've heard from our drivers, they've actually loved what's been going on. From our admin staff, they actually also love what's been going on, and so everyone's been happy. Knock on wood, and of course there will be challenges that come along, but that's with any business.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But it's so nice to hear because, usually like people are so worried when the companies got acquired where they work, like what's going to happen to them. But yeah, it's so nice to hear that everyone is kind of happy. It's exciting.
Yeah, well, I think what was good is I don't think I had that worries because my focus, especially in the last year, was building out strong systems to where it's not about me being so involved that makes the company. It's actually the systems that we built. So because like I stepped back, I was very confident that the systems that we built, that whoever does take over these systems would
Mhm.
be in a very good place.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm just going through questions in the chat, though I have a couple of other questions, but I'm going to leave them for the very, very end. But right now, based on your experience, what key advice would you offer a startup looking to gain traction in the US market, particularly in California, which is, yeah, it's an extremely competitive market.
Well, I would say know who you're going up against. I think that's extremely important because you're gonna have other, let's say, platforms in the market who will, of course, have capital at hand to, let's say, take you out quite easily. So you have to keep that in mind. Two, what are you doing that separates you from the other platforms? That's extremely important. And you're going to have some sort of competitive advantages that really stand out. You cannot say, well, we are better. Okay, well, what makes you better, right? What sort of features makes it better? Is it a much better experience for the driver? Is it a much better experience for the customer? Is it a much better experience for both? So you really have to have that understanding. Second thing I would say is, with this sort of business, you have to have a strong driver base. So, for example, if you don't have the driver acquisition or onboarding power compared to these other platforms, you have to really take that into consideration because you can have a flawless tech product, which Onde does provide. But of course, if you don't have the understanding of the market or what's going to take or what capital it's going to take, you're going to run into a wall, and I don't know what to do from there, really. So I think, especially in California, which I'm very, I would say, quite well versed in the market, you have to have that understanding. So just be prepared to know what you're getting into. That's all I would say. I wouldn't stir someone away from doing anything, but just understand what you're getting into is extremely important.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Amit. We have a question from Ali regarding the applications and how the application works, but I'm just gonna let everyone who is interested in on these applications know that You guys, you will receive an email after this webinar, and you can just reply to this email and we will put you in touch with our business development managers, and they're going to show you the application and how it works. And I'm moving to some other questions. Okay, and I'm seeing the one from John. Okay. From an island small market standpoint, what do you think is the most important as a startup? Okay, drivers or passengers? And I guess you have already answered, but maybe you can repeat it once again. Maybe John missed the previous part.
So I have no problem doing that. Yeah, I think it's both, really, right? So you have to have a simultaneous approach. Of course, you're going to need both to have the business, right? In the beginning, I would say maybe focus a little bit more on drivers because, like I said, you're going to need a driver base. And I would say in the beginning as well is when you source these drivers, you have to make them understand that, hey, you know what the business is going to be like in the beginning is not going to be like how it's going to be in the future. So just bear with us that you're starting from the beginning. Like I would assume if you were one of the first drivers for Uber, you would have had a similar experience. So you just have to have that understanding.
Yeah. Thank you, Amit. And the last question that I see in the chat, what strategies did you use to attract the first users and which ones proved to be the most effective?
What strategies? I would say is I think one of the I would say with Stroll, we were definitely one of the first ones in the market to utilize influencer marketing. I would definitely say, and that's both on a macro influencer and micro influencer approach. Another thing is, the digital marketing approach. We were one of the first ones in the space. I think that really utilized that well on how to actually target your potential drivers and potential customers. So I think that was a great strategy. And I think it's you have to try everything, right? And you have to be like if you want to be the best swimmer, I could show you videos on the best form and all these sort of things, but in reality, you just got to jump in the pool. And then when you jump in the pool, that day one, you're not going to be the ready for the Olympics, right? But as every day goes by, you figure out what works for you, what doesn't work, and it's a process. You just have to
Yeah.
trust the process.
Yeah, true. And every market is different, so no one knows what's going to work for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you, Amit. A couple of final questions, I guess, if we don't get anything else in the chat. But how do you think the ride-hailing industry has changed lately, and were there any surprises for you?
I think how it's changed uh, recently was, I think when everybody went through COVID, I think it gave everybody a chance to really see what do customers truly want, what do drivers truly want, how to better onboarding processes. And I think now it's such a staple in people's lives, ride hailing. And I think like people understand it now. So I think too it's ever changing. I think it's like any industry in the tech space where you just have to roll with the times, understand that the past is the past and there might be some things in the past that work now, but also start understanding that there are things that don't work anymore. And I think also understanding what the present and what the future is. So what the future can look like, I think that's great to take into account, but don't get lost in the future to where the present moment of what people want and features and that sort of thing, you're disregarding it. So I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you. And regarding the future, how do you see the future of ride-hailing evolving together with technology and keeping in mind how technologies are evolving
Um,
nowadays?
of course, more usage of AI. I think that will be there. And I think not only will AI provide a better experience for customers, but I think drivers as well. So there's that. I think regulations will get clear. in places, right? Maybe like regulations at airports, regulations on what credentials does a driver have to have. I think that will get clearer as time goes on. And yeah, I don't actually see it having any drastic changes. I think the big drastic changes have come already. So yeah, I think it'll just be business as usual.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amit. I see the last question in the chat. Which form of marketing methods could be the best in Cameroon to start the business? I don't know. Amit, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure, Cameroon. I would say maybe I would still go the digital approach because I would guess in Cameroon the mobile penetration numbers are high, like most other African nations that I know, and especially because it's similar. I think the African market is similar to like your Southeast Asia market, where people skip the whole going to a desktop and then to a smartphone device, where they went straight to the smartphone device. So because of that, I think the implementation is quite easy. So in terms of marketing approach, I would definitely utilize Meta products, Google products, right? So you have like your Facebook, your Instagram, your YouTube. And I think in a country like Cameroon, I'd want to say the price of that attention is still underpriced. So you can still have very effective digital marketing in that sort of market. That's just my guess. I've never been to Cameroon, but that's something I would guess.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Amit. Another one that we got here in the chat. Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have changed for your MVP?
The cliche answer is no. I think I have no regret. And the reason I say that is because, especially in the beginning when we didn't use Onde, right, and we were using a different platform, I got to really understand from A to Z, how do you actually build this? How does it work? And because I have that experience and understanding, now when I deal with other developers, so to speak, if they say, "Oh, this is going to take X amount of time," it's like, well, I don't think so, because I've been there, right? Um, yeah, I don't think there's any regrets or anything like I would necessarily change because the market's different now than what it was in the beginning. So I can't even say that, hey, you know what I know now, it would have worked back then, right? Because it was different. So if I can't really, that's a really difficult question to answer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it worked the way it should have worked, I believe.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah. So, Assam is asking ride hailing startup. Yes, we are talking about ride hailing startups and ride hailing businesses here. But I don't see any other questions, and I really, yeah, we got lots of positive feedback. Thank you so much, guys, for this
Yeah,
feedback.
thank
Uh,
you you guys for turning in.
Yeah, just the very last question, and I really don't want to kind of take more of your time, Amit. You have a flight to
Oh,
catch today, so
yeah,
but
right.
the last one, what strategies have you implemented to ensure that users remain engaged with your platform after their first use?
Providing a great service. Because if you don't have a great service, but you're just sending notification messages all day long, it doesn't matter. So just focus on providing a great service and just running a great business. I know it's not the answer people want to hear and they want it more specific, but that's really what it comes down to. And of course, that branches off into a plethora of topics, but yeah, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. Thank you so much for such a great interview, for inspiration,
Thank you.
motivation. Yeah, it was really great to talk to you, and really,
Like,
I'm just, yeah, like it was so great to hear all your answers and your experience here, and I'm pretty sure it was extremely useful for everyone who watched our interview today. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best and the good luck with all your new endeavors
I appreciate.
and on this trip.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody who tuned in. You know, like I am available, so I don't know if we provide like maybe like a contact link or an email or something, but I'm definitely always open to helping people as much as I can.
Yeah, we can think about how we can get you in touch
Sure.
with anyone who has any questions to you. So, thank you so much, Amit.
All right.
Okay, guys. Yeah, we are ending our recording. And thank you so much for being with us today. I
Yeah.
wish you all
Appreciate.
a great day. Yeah, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.